So good afternoon. This is the Town of Harpswell's Budget Advisory Committee meeting on November 18th, 2024. Before we adopt the agenda, we should introduce ourselves. I'll start with Dave.
Dave Zamorowski.
And I'm Linda Hall.
Marge Webster Warren.
Megan Pulsifer.
And Jane Meisenbach.
Okay, thank you. And you all got copies of the agenda. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So the first item under number 3 will be the town office, which is 1,200.
All set? So I'm the town administrator, Christy Ayana. I'll start things off. I know the deputy town administrator, Terry Goddard, has been very involved in many of the items that are on the agenda today, so you may want to jump in, Terry, with information that I may omit. So the first budget area, we're looking at facilities, the municipal building specifically. We contract services for cleaning, so that's primarily related to cleaning services. And we think we might do some additional cleaning in the coming year. Electricity, we felt we could keep on hold. Same thing with telephone. Comcast is going up a bit. And we have our general repair area. We're holding that. The area that you're seeing a significant decrease is the HVAC support and supply. We're having an entirely new system revamped, and parts will be warrantied, and so we don't expect to have much expense in that area. We use a company to provide drinking water, and we have a kind of a small treatment plan for our water. And we are reducing fuel because we have recently realized that the oil boiler, which was our furnace, had a small leak and really needed to be replaced as part of the whole HVAC project. So we're going to a propane boiler. The new HVAC system involves some pretty major heat pumps. They're very efficient. So we still need this propane boiler to serve as a backup and potentially, help us out when the electricity might go down. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
So when the electricity, I won't hear myself on this one, I guess. When the electricity goes out, the heat pumps will not run on our generator, so it'll be set up so we'll use our propane backup. Other than when the power goes out when we're on the generator, it's during the extreme cold if we need the backup boiler, but these should, anyways. So we were able to reduce the fuel line.
It's hard for us to know, though, without some experience, what that number is going to look like. So we did our best guesstimate at this point.
Did they size the system for the expected heat loading of the
Yes.
building under adverse conditions?
They reviewed what we needed. We shared that information with our Energy and Technology Committee, and everyone seemed satisfied with the proposal, that it was sized. We didn't want to go too small.
Right.
So I think, again, we're going to see some efficiencies, and has a life expectancy of 20-plus years, so
Yeah.
we're in this for a while. Yeah.
Be nice to see that propane bill go down to
Yeah,
zero
it will.
absent the power outage.
It would be,
you know?
yeah. And then we have a security system, ongoing expenses.
Christy, can I ask you a couple questions on some of the things that you've mentioned? On electricity, the budget, essentially it's flat, but the notes below say that fall 2024 heat pumps installed will increase costs, but that's not reflected in that line. What was meant by that?
Because we're only at 9,200, and I thought if while the heat pump should increase the cost, we don't know how much yet. And we were gonna be under budget for this year, so thought we could go a year to see, but I really didn't know how much to estimate in there, Dave.
No, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great explanation. Because you're essentially substituting electricity for propane. First year, you take your best guess and see how it goes. Yeah.
It's a good question, though.
Yes.
I think we will be watching that, and we just weren't prepared.
And then the Comcast number, sort of the increase there blew me away. Is that just a service increase, or are we demanding additional services from them? Or is
We
this-
are not demanding anything additional from Comcast. They go up quite severely. I will tell you that we have started exploring Fidium. We've run into a couple of roadblocks, but have not given up of going down that road. If I can get some conduits from the pole out there into the building, we will be going to Fidium. They have offered us a better pricing for all three of our buildings, recycling, EMS, and here. The EMS will still need some TV, which we'll have to stream, but we are definitely looking for better, faster service at a lower cost.
Yeah, that's great. We have Fidium, and just our personal experience has been terrific with them.
Have you,
I
I'm
have a que-
sorry,
I had a question on Comcast
go ahead.
also. Is this just for internet?
That is just for internet, but
And
it's a
is it-
business account.
So it's more?
It is more.
And kind of a basic question. I know at my house, we have a modem, a router. And do you have more than one, or is it because it's a big building, or more people?
We have multiple ubiquity Wi-Fi throughout the building, but no, there's one modem in our server room. But this is a business Comcast class, so it's supposed to be at the highest
More
speed that they,
reliable and-
more reliable, highest speed and better service. I don't experience a lot of that, but anyways, it's quite a bit more.
And then I had an additional question. You mentioned the phone. Have you thought about the phone lines being on the internet also?
So that's what we're also exploring with Fidium, is we want to go to VoIP. So we are,
And
We-
that would be long distance too. I mean, it would cover everything.
that, they have fiber down
Right.
the roads here
Because I
now in
know-
Harpswell. So that's what started this whole thing, is we're exploring
Okay.
converting everything over. And we had a Zoom meeting with an additional company that currently, so Consolidated has our lines, but we go with another company for our long and local distance. And we met with them too, and they have some options as well, but we're really thinking once we successfully can get this Fidium schematic set up, that we're gonna go with everything with Fidium.
Matthew?
Could I toss a little sand in the gears that you might take a look at Starlink? Their service is very fast and very inexpensive.
Very inexpensive. I
Yes,
assume.
yes.
and relative to these other offerings,
Do they do VoIP? Do they do all of the above?
they will do that as well. So it might be worth doing.
Okay.
Or you could bundle them with, if for some reason voice doesn't work to the level that you need it, but given public safety and so forth.
Great.
And then the drinking water supply, is that all volume, or is that all price-driven, or is that volume-driven, that 33% increase?
So, with this particular company, it's both. We actually, I'm sure you all are aware how popular our Cliff Trail is, and so particularly in spring through fall, we go through a lot of water for the public. They're coming in and refilling their water, in addition to the employees, but we go through a lot, but this is the fall of exploration. We are it's irritating that there's a lot of cost with that company who has a monopoly on bottled water. But we have recently found a company that we are going to switch to, but simultaneously, I had our water treatment company back and did some testing on the waters because I wanted to put in an additional filtration system that could take out the things that make our water bad and do fountains, and not necessarily your old-fashioned fountains, but the kind that you can put your cup in or something. So we're exploring trying to go to our own water as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, thank you. And EMS garage, which is 1205.
Yeah, I think you'll see a small increase there, primarily having to do with the drinking water. And
Now,
that's the
you-
small building that houses the paramedic.
If you go to Fidium with that cable internet phone, would change also,
Yes.
or possibly.
It's flat here as opposed to the up 33% with respect to the municipal building. Is that because the underlying composition of this line item is different?
Yes. Yep. As a matter of fact, the phone had been eliminated over at that building, and so instead of reducing it, it seems to be absorbing the increase in Comcast. So it's really just cable and internet through Comcast. We don't have a separate phone over there. The paramedics use their cell phones, and if we need to get in touch with one of them over a non-emergency matter, obviously, we either walk over or we know the different people there and call them on their cell. So they did not need a phone any longer, and when it was creating an issue over there, I just eliminated it.
And I see that, again, that the electricity here is flat. Are you expecting that the standard offer is not going to increase this coming year?
What makes our electricity so hard at this point in time is, and you weren't at the first meeting, Dave, but the select board signed on with a solar farm, and so we get credits, which I explained at the last meeting about street lighting that has been an issue since the beginning. And so, like, we were way overbanked on our streetlights, which we ended up losing some credits because they were doing the high amount based on our usage prior to converting them to LED. And so, like, right now, we should have a high bank leaving the summer, and we have almost no bank in any of our accounts. And so we're having some difficulty really figuring out, and we're thinking, when we first did that, it really had it up and down. We're really thinking the tail end of this year and going into next year is going to make things much clearer for us on how that works, because it has not been a smooth transition, and very difficult to get attention when you call the company that you have to call about their credits and their billing.
Do they give you a inventory, last 12 months inventory and usage and generation rates,
On the
like all in one
invoice.
place for you to look at?
On the invoice, but my deputy treasurer tracks it on an Excel spreadsheet, so she has that all in one location, yes.
Do you anticipate upping your demand of community solar with respect to the heat pumps in the addition, or it's still to be sorted out?
It's still to be sorted out. At times, it was so difficult that she and I were like, you know, we were paying more than we would have been paying had we not been participating in the solar farm. And that's, you know, that's great for the environment if that makes some people feel good about that. But it doesn't, as a bottom line taxpayer, make me feel very good. So there's still some things to straighten out on that. But like I said, at that one point, we were even kind of recommending perhaps withdrawing, but you have to give a year's notice. And so we've decided to just kind of see how things smooth out now that we're getting to some sort of continuity.
Thank you.
American?
I think it's wise. We did the same thing with Nexamp, and I'm not sure which one you use, and it took 2 years for the volatility to smooth itself out and substantiate the case that it does cost less than CMP.
Great.
About 15% less.
Hard to believe it's been 10 years since that building opened.
Oh,
I know.
I know.
Feels like
It's amazing.
just yesterday.
I know what you mean.
when
Where
I
did those
saw
10
that
years
data.
go?
Oh, my God. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you very much. Okay, 1210, Old Townhouse.
So we are asking for some more money in what we're called, this is really our maintenance account. We did do some major work at the old townhouse this past year. We had it painted and we had the roof shingles, we had a preservative applied. And we've been told that that preservative should keep those shingles in pretty good shape for, was it 20 years, I believe? Which seemed like a long time
Oh, I
to
didn't
me,
think
but
that long,
maybe
but-
not that long, 10 maybe.
We're just happy it got done.
Maybe 10, it was, yeah. So it looks really nice, the exterior. We also had some work done in the cemetery to some of the stones, and we will continue to look at a number of tree limbs in that area. Ooh, they may need to come down. That Harpswell Center area had a lot of trees impacted by both brown-tail moth and winter moth. And so we did do some injections for a couple of years to see if we could save some of them. I think it worked to some extent. It really kind of extends the life, but doesn't necessarily cure the problem. So
That's right.
we've got some money in there to make sure we get rid of some of these dangerous limbs. Building maintenance, we've been told that we really need to start budgeting a line for annual maintenance. There's just little things that happen and we didn't really have a budget to go to. You know, you gotta fix the front stoop, there's a leak by the window, you know, things like that. We're really not looking at a lot of interior maintenance that I'm aware of at this point, but that could be something in the future. We have a security system there, very minimal electricity usage. A little bit of holiday decoration, and then we do have some money in here to do some stone cleaning. So the stones are being repaired, and we'd like to be able to clean them next year.
And is that the same entity that you used at Graveyard Point?
I think it was.
Was
that
it?
Colette?
It's Colette is who we're using. We use them at Graveyard Point.
I can't confirm that.
Just curious.
Is this primarily an aesthetic attraction, or what's the usage intensity?
For the stone cleaning?
No, of the building.
Oh, the usage, well, there's a few functions in there, but not a lot of function. There's no public bathroom.
There's
So
no plow.
It really limits the use
There's
of
no
that
plumbing,
building.
is there?
Yeah.
No plumbing.
There's no
No
plumbing.
power.
There's a wood stove, which I think they have used for a couple of events that were in the middle of winter, but I don't think we highly recommend much use of that. So there's limited use. I do know the Historical Society does tours on Sundays of the building. So you can stop by, and there's usually a member of the organization willing to show people around. And it was recently on 207. I don't know if you noticed that the president of the Historical Society was interviewed about this new book that they are using for a fundraiser about town meetings. I think it was
Yes, I
printed
saw
in the
that.
1950s.
Yeah.
They're
John
doing a
Gould's book.
reprint, and the president, David Hackett, was interviewed in the old meeting house, and it really looked quite incredible. Of course, the kind of equipment they can use to tape that broadcast was, I mean, it just really shined a light on how beautiful and historic that building is.
Is
That-
there,
Go ahead.
is there any consideration or sort of long-term consideration about sort of repurposing the building so it goes off the town expense lines, and yet it preserves all its integrity and doesn't change, becomes something else, but becomes somebody else's responsibility to maintain and gets more use?
I think there's a reluctance from the town standpoint to just turn that building over to an entity like the Historical Society, which, you know, like many of the organizations in Harpswell, they probably have concerns about their sustainability.
Of course.
And so we are seen as the entity that, you know, has the ability to fund repairs. And, you know, there's enough use that we don't have to have a vacant building policy, which can be expensive. So it kind of works out at the moment, I think, that we retain ownership, primary responsibility, and we allow the Harpswell Heritage, or the Harpswell Historical Society to kind of oversee it and run tours. And they recently had a program with the Land Trust. I think they told old ghost stories in there. Might have been the last week or so.
They called it night.
What was
they
it
called?
called?
It bedtime stories. So, I'm surprised to hear there were ghost stories.
Oh, I don't know.
The sign out front said bedtime stories.
And they walk through the cemetery, or they did that one year, walking through the cemetery
Okay.
and
And
telling
does this,
stories.
does this include the building across the street?
No, that is not town-owned.
Okay,
That's owned by the Historical Society.
society,
But it
okay.
does include the cow.
Oh,
And, yeah,
the grounds
The
there.
cow
yes,
grounds.
Right.
Cattle
Yeah.
p-
Cattle
pound.
Cattle
Yeah.
pound,
Pound.
that's right.
and the parking area, the gravel parking area.
And Marge, you had a question?
On the Historical Society, and they're the bulk what uses this building, correct?
They just manage the tours and leading the public through it and organizing, like school children have come and they've done reenactments. You know, so the Historical Society has kind of organized all those things. We haven't had a staff person be involved in that.
I want to follow through something on, like Mackin said. I've seen where Historical Societies, towns have sold it to the Historical Society for $1, as long as it is used for that purpose. And their budget maintains it and insures it and alleviates the town. So I'm on the same track as Mackin is. Has that ever been looked at or considered?
I'm just gonna say, from my vantage point, I don't see
The voters?
the financial capacity in that organization to take on what you're describing. I think the town is better suited to maintain responsibility and ownership of that building.
It's a pretty amazing building.
It is
If you have not been in there, you should go sometime. But I have a would it be helpful, because this is an extreme budget, the last few years, to get that painting done and the roof work done. Other years, it was not this much, unless I go through my old books or something. Would it be helpful for people to know how expenditures have been over the years for this building?
It encourages public-private partnership.
Pardon?
I said it might encourage public-private partnership.
Well, I'm thinking, you look at this number, you go, this is a building we're spending 30,000, 40,000 on, but we didn't do that 5 years ago.
No,
Was it about 200 or something?
Pardon?
Very, very small.
$200.
Right,
yeah.
it wasn't much.
Yeah.
And then we got hit with, the roof needs to be taken care of in its historical form, and the clapboards need to be painted a certain way and replaced a certain way, or it's not in its historical form. But if we spread it out over 10 years, what would it be? Like an average cost? I don't know.
I think it'd be nice to be able to at least track that, right?
Track
Not
it.
reaching any
Yeah.
conclusions, but just
Right,
to
just to
watch it,
know
see
that,
it.
you know, 5 years ago, we spent $200. 10 years ago, we spent $100. I don't know what it was. But there's barely any electricity in there, is that right?
Right, barely.
But-
And it used to be the town office,
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
without a bathroom
Right.
or heat.
Had
But
to go across the road.
And by public,
never one year did we spend 200. We've always
Okay.
at least been spending 10,000 on mowing.
Oh, mowing.
Oh,
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, well,
And
that's
so-
the cemetery, probably.
Mowing appears in a lot of places throughout the budget. Do we have one person that's performing that service on behalf of the town?
Yes.
And the cemeteries?
And our cemeteries,
And our cemeteries?
because we met with all the other individual cemeteries,
Yep.
and many of them they have their own situations with their own mowers, and those people would actually do it at a discount for public service and stuff, so it wouldn't benefit them, so they didn't really want to try to
Okay.
do a townwide bid, if you will. But, yeah, we put our mowing services out to bid, and we have one company that mows all of our properties.
How often do we put it out to bid?
Like most things, we say maybe once every 10 years, but we've gone longer on our legal, longer on our auditor, and probably longer at this point on our mowers.
Who's doing it today?
Coastal landscaping.
Okay. One last question, and this is maybe a little bit oblique. Is there do they have a regular time and place where a docent staffs the building and can give tours to walk-ins based on the schedule of hours?
They publish on Sunday afternoons, they're open from 1 to 4, I believe, and that they will give tours. But I don't know how far and wide that really gets communicated, so maybe that's something the town can help with, communicating that information.
It might increase the quote-unquote usage intensity too. I think it's, from what I've seen, and it's simply n equals 1, it's quite haphazard with respect to its availability, and to the extent somebody can establish a more regular schedule, things tend to get used that way because schedules get discovered.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be careful about the use of that building. I mean, it's got a lot of historic features, and so, I don't know that we want a lot of big events in there.
I
The
was
small
simply thinking a
tours are
docent,
fine.
right? Somebody
Yeah,
who can,
right,
when you show up at
right.
the door.
And I would say Dave Hackett he's the president of the Historical Society.
Right.
If anybody wanted a tour, they could contact him, and he would do it, when it's convenient for them.
You would do it Wednesday afternoon if you
Yeah,
want to.
yeah.
He's
So I
he's
think
like
we
that, yeah.
can work with them to try to get that message out better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What animated my question was, for many years, I was chair of a thing called a John Jay Homestead in Katona, New York, which was John Jay's home.
Mm.
And the state of New York owns it, but this group ran it. And the partnership worked very, very well, and animated the use hugely. Otherwise, it would just sat fallow, costing everybody a lot of money. So it's possible to get these relationships going, but I fully understand what you're saying, Christie. And maybe it's worth, creating a small group who will think about it, explore alternatives other than the Historical Society, because they don't have the capacity, and so on and so forth.
Does work.
I like it the way it is.
Taxpayers like the cost factor, the increased cost factor. We're all looking at that too.
Yeah. So am I.
Okay, we'll talk about Cundy's Harbor later. Okay, sorry. Are we done with townhouse?
I mean, I just do want to reiterate, we do have a partnership. We currently have a partnership, and it's on a smaller scale, but it seems to work.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
Okay.
that very much.
I didn't want it to sound like we didn't have a partnership with the Historical Society.
And I believe the church uses it also, at least once in the summertime.
I think they have
Kellogg.
one.
The
yeah,
Kellogg
yeah.
Church, yes. So we're moving on to Robin Hood Beach, or Cedar Beach and Robin Hood Beach,
Robin Hood Road.
which I'm not finding for some reason.
Well,
It's
it's
right-
27.
There it is.
Okay,
Couple
Found
tabs
it.
down.
Found it.
Yep.
Okay. 7,800 for, these are monitors, beach monitors? Yeah,
Yes,
which are required, right?
yes, yes.
And the park, if I remember right, the park/lands town monitor part-time position is separate and distinct from this?
Right.
Okay. Is there any reason why that wasn't?
Well, because in order to use this area, which is not owned by the town, Cedar Beach is not a town-owned beach, the agreement requires that we have monitors go to Cedar Beach. So we've got to fill those spots. The park monitor has had more flexibility, Some days they might not work because something's happening or going on, so we've got to have people
Doesn't fit into
fill
that.
these slots. And sometimes they cover the slots.
Yep.
But we really tried to have designated people, you know, doing this, because if we don't keep up our end of the bargain, then the public could lose use of the property.
A good sense it's working well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really is, yeah.
And the issue is really parking, isn't it?
So the parking is on Robin Hood Road, which is a town road, but it's a long walk to get to Cedar Beach. So you have to go down Cedar Beach Road, which is not owned by the town, and you have to cross onto this, over onto this easement
Yeah.
to use Cedar Beach. So it's a complicated situation, but we've worked out a deal, and I think people are happy.
Good.
And it's not just the parking, isn't it also to kind of make sure people are using the beach appropriately and not
Leaving
leaving
garbage.
trash?
There are some
I mean, I
rules,
remember
yes,
when this first
right.
started,
Yeah,
there were major concerns about
Yeah.
trash
yeah,
and so forth.
yeah.
Is the 1,800 that's unexpended, you don't plan to use that this year? Or is the beach closed at this point?
Yes, well, you could actually go to the beach, but we are not required to have a monitor now.
After Labor Day.
After
we're-
Labor Day?
But a lot of staff had to cover this year due to a shortage on monitors, so there's less
I see.
expended, but we're hoping to correct that situation if there's teenagers out there looking for a summer job next summer. They can reach out to us.
Okay.
And the over expenditure on supplies, I didn't increase that because that was a direct effect of every single sign on the beach. If you've been there,
Yeah.
it's full of signs. Every single one of them was removed in January.
Yep. And we don't know where it went, so we can't replace, we have to replace them with new ones.
And we did.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm being facetious. Okay. Any more questions on that one? Okay, thank you. Okay, cemeteries, 12:30. So we understand that Cranberry Horn Hill representative cannot be here when we are, during our meeting times.
Well, so a little bit of an update since I sent that email on Friday, so, or Thursday. When I spoke with Kim, I said, you know, it's really because of your increase, and she's willing to drop down her increase. And I said, why don't you send me an email about your increase, and I'll provide it to the committee. I did say, but I think the committee was hoping, if possible, to meet you as well, especially with what they heard about Cranberry Horn Cemetery. And so in her email that she sent me, she did say that she might be able to make the next meeting, and I wanted to ask, did you want me to confirm that with her and try, or would you like me to read? Let me read this, and then you all can provide some direction to me. Since I'm still in the process of learning about how the cemetery is run. This is why I thought I would request the extra monies. So, you know, she didn't have something concrete for it. She's just feet on the ground, and so this email says she's willing to go back to 6,000. She's willing to come try to make the next meeting. So what would this committee like me to do with her?
I'd like to understand specifics,
I would too.
because we've been helping that cemetery. And again, this is another one where I don't remember the amounts going back beyond 23, which is on our page. But it was always extra, there was always extra amount because they needed it. And so I'd like to know what they would be planning.
Okay.
And
I personally would like to see or talk to her about this Cranberry Horn. As for Christy knows, I contacted her numerous times when the cemetery looked like sin. And my thing is, our cemeteries, I think, are a total reflection of our community, and that one was bad lots of times. But it happened when I called Christie, it got taken care of, so thank you for that.
And I think it's important to really hear basically an official report of how she's progressing in getting the organization up and running, staffed and all the rest.
And kudos to her.
So we can have some inkling of what's
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
Do we have just for my edification, do we have a general policy with respect to community reimbursement of the cemeteries? I read some of the official doctrine in there, but it wasn't really, here's how we approach it. It was more of a, in the case of veterans, you must, and then you may.
I think our policy has focused on trying to help these organizations, which are nonprofits, help them take care of their cemeteries without the town stepping in and taking over. And so I believe Maine law was changed and we started to look at this military piece as being a way of trying to provide financial assistance to all of them on an even basis. And so we asked them to all come in and, provide us with a list of veterans, the number of veterans, and this committee started to come up with the idea of per grave. So we've had that approach, but I agree that Cranberry Horn for a number of years, and we'd have to look at how
Probably
many,
at least 10, everything's
has
10.
had a difficult
Yeah,
time raising funds.
Mhm.
And so they were to the point of asking the town to take over the cemetery organization. It's a long, convoluted process. I think at this point, for the organization to resurrect itself is really the best way to go forward. I think they still are trying to pull together a core group of people with some skill sets, like in the financial area, that would help them establish a budget, really get things under control. They have somebody who's willing to lead the organization. They have people who are willing to help, but I don't know if they have all of these kind of broader skill sets available to them. How do you get this nonprofit back into good standing, right? So those are some things they need to work on. And I think if there are any people in the Cundy's Harbor area that would want to help out and reach out to them, that could be a positive. That could
Well, I
be a
sense a
positive.
certain reluctance to sort of send out a plea for help. And I've been,
Yeah.
as you know,
Yeah.
been urging she do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
And, so hopefully, when she comes here, and
Mhm.
we can have a back and forth and urge her to be a little bit more disciplined in trying to create the organization.
but I did meet with the people who are coming together, and they all want to see this happen.
Absolutely.
They want to take care of the cemetery. They are trying to pick up the pieces. And so it's
Which is always the best solution if you can achieve it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, as
So
opposed to the
I
town.
think the town has helped them, but at some point, I think we'd like to see them move away from this additional assistance and try to get back to this, the even playing field. But a couple of years ago, and maybe it was before Dave was on the budget committee, we did sit down with all the organizations, but Cranberry Horn Hill, and we didn't end up sitting down with them because they were sort of in this disarray mode. But they kept things together, and I want to compliment them on that. They
Oh,
just
absolutely.
did the best they could with the information that they had.
And I don't sense there's any crisis here. It's a matter of just patience and sort of urging them along.
Just as a side note, to directly answer Dave's question, the town does have a funding for independent, not-for-profit organizations policy, but it's generic to all not-for-profits. That's in our policy manual. And Christie really explained our practice and our position, try to help, but we do have a technical policy as well.
Okay, and the practice is consistent with the policy, I assume? Or not inconsistent with it?
Well, there's, number 3 says, organizations should have a corporate or other legal status or be affiliated with same to enable the town to deal with a legally accountable entity. Anyways, there's some difficulty in that area, but they were, trying to work through it.
Right.
We're trying to locate the
and
actual
that's-
chart
that's in the
state of
poli-
Maine
if-
at this point.
I would find that
Policy
information in the
manual.
policy section of town
We can
information.
provide it to you folks.
I'm just curious.
Our full policy manual's online.
Thank you for your nighttime reading. Thank you. I had a question about the 3,000 other costs, and that's available should something come up?
Well, we've
that
also been using it and have used it for the old Dunning Cemetery, which is
You
off
did.
the mountain road, yeah.
Oh, have we taken that one over, or?
Well, the property owner doesn't mind when we come in and clean it up, but we're not really mowing it on a regular basis, but we're trying to keep it in good condition.
How large is it, remind me?
How large is it? Ooh,
I mean, how many
Oh,
graves?
very old.
30?
20 or
Maybe.
30.
20 or 30, yeah.
And as far as mowing, I mean, it's all wooded,
It's very
and so,
bumpy, it's, you know,
Yeah.
it's not like a manicured kind of
Right.
thing.
so we don't regularly go in and do anything anymore since that first year where everything was cleaned up, all the roots were cut out and taken out. We haven't been back since, but we never know when another one's going to come up, so that carry forward cost, we used to carry 5,000 in there, we have decreased it last year to 3,000.
Do you use it? Do you know if it's been expended?
It has not
recently?
been.
Okay. And
But-
but that doesn't carry over.
But I did also want to address, besides Cranberry Horn, you see in your books that you have an actual application from Cranberry Horn, Hillcrest, Bailey Island, Orr's Island. I have not received West Harpswell's yet, so I carried their vets from over the years. So, I mean, I personally know one new vet that's in there, so I suppose I could increase it to 88. But anyways, just so you know why it says estimated next to
Have they
that.
have you reached out to them?
Of course.
Of course, of course. Okay,
Again, it's the volunteerism and,
Mhm.
and
yeah,
how far do you,
yeah,
anyways.
okay.
Linda,
I'm sorry. Go
a
ahead.
tangential question. Do we have a map or an inventory of all the burying grounds in town?
We might not have every one that might be on a private parcel.
No, that's what I meant.
Yeah. I can't say that we have a absolute comprehensive one.
You have a great assignment for the Historical
Yeah.
Society or something.
Oh, boy.
And we discovered one on Little Yarmouth,
Oh, you did?
at the south end. Yeah.
Recently?
We've known about it for
Oh,
years, but
okay.
like that. And there was
Huh.
another.
I was gonna say, there's one behind my house that you wouldn't know it's there
Hmm.
because it's overgrown.
Sure.
And so overgrown,
Is anyone taking care of it?
no, absolutely not. And it's. if
Does
you-
the owner know that it's there?
If you look on the town tax maps,
Mhm.
it shows that little section as cemetery, not that somebody actually owns it. Um, So I would give you that information
Yeah.
later. It's
And
incredibly
we have a
overgrown.
responsibility to find out who owns the property, to notify them that there is this burial
Yeah.
ground on their property. And if they decline to take care of it, we can step in.
Okay. Yes, this would be in the category of ancient. Um, Oh, early 1800s, I think, if that.
And what is the, what,
She asked me how ancient.
How ancient is what I asked?
ancient is what?
1880.
1880.
But this is yeah, really ancient. You can barely read. The one time I tried to find the stones,
Mhm.
they were barely readable, if that. Anything else on cemeteries? So we would have Cranberry Horn Hill, have her come next week, did you say, or was that next week?
That's what,
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 1300 risk management.
So we did invite a member of the budget committee to sit with our insurance agent, and I hope that was, helpful and gave you some good insight
You
into.
and Harry were extremely gracious, and I appreciated the opportunity. What was especially impressive was the long-term relationship you had and had selected somebody who was highly qualified to do that job.
That's
on
nice
your
to hear.
behalf. So,
And I will just say, speak for myself, there was a couple of times when my eyes glassed over when the two of them were discussing insurance and insurance wording, and we just sat and enjoyed it.
That was on purpose.
Enjoy in quotes, yes.
No, it was interesting.
Yeah, we could tell that there were insurance kind of, junkies in the room, right?
Speaking their own language.
Experts is a
Well,
nice
it's sort of
term,
pushing the
I'm
blow
sorry.
for seeing these kinds of numbers too.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is.
Yeah, I know.
We're talking about this is the policy environment, and this is the insurance environment. This is
Yeah.
not Harpswell specific.
Yeah,
In fact, these numbers, to my subsequent understanding, are probably better than the
Yeah.
numbers you might be seeing in a lot of other places, meaning lower increases.
Wow.
And this is driven, one piece of insurance geekness. This is, right now, it's being driven primarily by the reinsurance market. Reinsurance is very scarce. A lot of capital has disappeared from that world, and that's the world that the insurers use. That's their insurance policy, so they're buying from people like Lloyd's of London or Gen Re, other very big people. They're laying off risk. And there's no capital in that market. And the primary insurers cannot keep that risk on their balance sheet because it's too much. They don't have the capital to be able to afford to do that, so effectively they finance that over time. And that will presumably work its way out of the system, but for the time being, this is where we are,
might be
right?
a while.
So this is not hard and fast, but projected, it says.
So we've projected a 15% increase to sort of general liability, public officials, boats, autos. That's sort of one category. And then we have our workers' comp, which we've really jumped up significantly.
Which
Almost
is a
80.
different
yeah.
entity.
Right, right. And the reason for the workers' comp?
Yeah.
So I think we have under budgeted for a couple of years now, and when we add firefighters, they're at a much higher rating.
Okay.
And so I think we underestimated what those costs would be, and now we're projecting to add a couple more. So we think this is a pretty good number.
Yeah, I think each year we would, take the percent for the increase off the prior year. We don't get our audit until February or March of the following year, which revealed several things, different categories and stuff. And so, but Christie would get that form in the fall of the year to have to say what to do for the next year. So it was kind of a circular thing, but we went in this year and really kind of laid out our different categories, our additional hours for the firefighters, which you'll hear at a different meeting about the weekend coverage and how that also increased it. So there's the additional coverage in the firefighters and really getting our payroll up to what it is.
Christine, do we self-insure for climate-related risks?
I mean, whatever's not covered, but
Well-
we were surprised, quite frankly, that our dock was covered. Because many people did not have that same type of coverage, but ours was on our policy as a structure, and so
That
it
would make
was,
sense.
it was covered. I guess we have FEMA as sort of our public insurance company if there's a declared disaster. Other than that, no, you don't insure a road, so if something happens to a road and it's not a FEMA
Correct.
disaster, we're gonna pay for it.
Mhm.
So, yes, that would be self-insured. Certain things you really, I don't know if you could insure a road,
I guess it's showing up
Yeah.
in the premiums of climate-caused
Mm.
damage,
Yeah,
things of that sort.
yeah.
I'm not
I
sure
wouldn't wanna
such-
be living in some other states right now, let's put it that way. Whew.
I'm not sure such coverage is even available,
yeah,
and does it make sense?
yeah.
I don't think it is. Wind coverage is available, and then you have the water, but that's a very limited
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
and
too.
very expensive program, right? I'm surprised the dock was actually covered, because that wasn't
It's-
water.
well, it was,
based
they
damage?
considered the wind issue.
Yeah.
Wow,
m-
okay,
moving
Even the
so
water
much
took it
water.
over, but we insisted the wind pushed the
It
water.
was a
wow.
combination, so.
It does.
you
All
know,
depends on the wording.
Try that one at our
Yeah,
place.
that's,
All
I mean, I
depends on
think
the
we-
wording.
yeah.
We have a
We tried it.
minimal number
Yeah.
of structures, you know, so things could change, as Dave says, if we lose our, you know, provider and we have to go look for another,
You know,
So-
language changes in the policies too
right.
all the time, so
they
that
start
that undoubtedly is gonna change.
accepting
There'll be
all
more
kinds of things.
exclusions.
Yeah, yeah.
So where does structure on this list?
That would be in your,
Property
I guess-
damage.
yeah, property damage
Okay,
package. I think it's, one place it's called package over there, property damage.
okay.
I
And
do
that's
like,
any building or property that the town owns?
Yep.
Okay.
and we have the blanket policy, so, you know, we have a lot of coverage under the blanket, and so if we've underestimated the cost of something, the blanket covers everything up to so many million, you know.
But that's liability insurance, not damage.
No, it's property too, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, I mean, it gives you a little more comfort if you know, if something maybe isn't, you know, the right estimate under the policy, that you've got the blanket piece.
Are the boats used year-round? They're available year-round or
They're
not?
available.
So the insurance policy is for use
Mhm.
year-round?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else on this one? Okay, sometime we should have a seminar just on insurance from Dave Mackin.
Yeah.
Maybe not,
Good thing.
Fascinating.
but we're glad you're
Yeah,
here.
it actually is quite interesting, but
Okay. Okay, employee benefits, which is the next one in our folder anyway.
Probably one of the quickest ways is to just, you know, let you know that we've got a payroll of over 1.6 million. So, you know, we can calculate things like social security, FICA, Medicare, based on that 1.6 million. I will say, the select board typically, in addition to the across-the-board COLA, they look at various salaries and whether or not they need to be adjusted to keep up with kind of local market conditions. So that has not yet happened, and there could be a few changes as a result of that, and that could have some impact on employee benefits as well.
do you know what the COLA rate is?
We're
this
using
year?
2.5%, we're using the social security COLA.
But that would be an upward adjustment.
Yes.
So,
big-
oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Upward from 2024?
No, if you go to individual increases.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant comparing your social security to last year,
No,
sorry.
no, the overall.
And then we've got one employee in state retirement. The town no longer offers it, but it stopped it as of a certain date, so we still have one person. And then we have a 457 deferred compensation plan for retirement. The town matches up to 6%. Health insurance went up, what percentage? 9%. And we've added the possibility of, was it one or two people?
Added a what?
Didn't we add an additional person to
One.
one? Okay. We added.
Just
an
add in the
additional-
11.5%, that one person, or is that just the rate applied to the old employee base?
The 11.5 is just applied to the total prior year's budget or current year's budget.
Okay.
Short-term leave, paid family medical leave. I don't know if you want to talk about that one, Terry?
So that's new,
Yeah.
effective January 1st, 2025. you can't use it then, you have to fund it for the first year and several months, it won't be available until April or May of 2025, but employees,
Or it will be available in 2026?
excuse me, I'm sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
2026.
Right.
But we start deductions January 1st, and it's 1%, but you can have your employees do half and the town do half. So we're going to start that way. A lot of seminars that I've taken on and a lot of employers, kind of like when the paid leave law came out, it's really meant for those that, you know, you don't get offered any time off, any benefits. And so we had a very generous sick and vacation time. So we ended up, when paid leave came out required, we decreased our sick time because paid leave can be used for sick or vacation. And so with this main paid family and medical leave, we may make some other changes. That's still, we have a year to figure that out. We may change short-term disability. We may make some other changes, and if we do, you know, maybe we take over. There's lots of things to discuss in the future, but for 2025, it'll be 0.5% employees and 0.5% town,
The percent is based on what?
the pay.
On their pay,
Yes, on their pay.
and that's an annual.
1.6.
Well,
Yeah,
right, in here,
take
I
my,
put it-
take my salary, 0.5% is going into that fund.
yes.
Okay.
So I did the annual cost in here, but yeah, so there's quarterly filings and stuff like that.
And remind me how long this is. It's for how many days I need, or?
Oh, I did not bring down my paid leave.
It's complicated.
It is complicated, but they have worked out, this last seminar was actually with the new NPFML director and the new NPFML deputy director. And I'm sorry, I'm drawing a complete blank on that, but I'd be happy to report that next week.
Are these
Okay.
state mandated
This
programs?
is state, so
Yes.
state of Maine is one, there's a few states that have adopted it. Mass had adopted it many years ago, and so Maine, and then they have this map that shows states that are considering it, states that haven't considered it yet, so it's definitely a trend that is coming up. But there is concerns that, you know, I think we have a great batch of employees here, we have a great team, but several employees had expressed things like, you know, so if we don't make policy changes, they can use their sick, vacation, get paid the MPFML, and also get short-term disability. And so, you know, why would an employee want to come to work? So, you know, there's, again, I don't think we'd have anybody to take advantage of it, but you don't make a policy based on individuals, you make a policy of what could take place.
Right.
So there are some things for us to consider, but since it has to be funded over a year in
So you've
advance,
got
we
a
have
year
some,
to figure this out.
we have some time on that.
Yeah. Okay. I'd just be curious if.
I think it's up to the 12 weeks, like the
12
federal
weeks,
one is.
12 weeks?
It is, it's 12 weeks, like the federal.
Okay.
Federal isn't paid, but.
Okay, thank you so much. We can move on to social services, which is 5,300, so that's quite a bit back in our book. And do you want to talk about?
So I just think, again, this has been Harpswell's practice to provide sort of nominal funding to many social service agencies. There are a couple that we tend to provide more funding to, such as People Plus, Mid-Coast Hunger Prevention, and Harpswell Aging at Home.
And I just want to add, you'll see on your sheets when this book was prepared, there's 3 entities who had their 2025 request highlighted. I since then have received People Plus, but I am missing Mid-Coast Maine Community Action and YMCA, but we'll continue to work with them. You know, when you have staff changeover and things take a little bit longer, but I do have People's Plus since this was issued.
Is it the same as what's written here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Terry, could you explain on the second page, what you're trying to get at there with the request per person served and the pro rata Harpswell? What's the appropriate comparison?
So we're trying to get, based on our, what we provide, how does that compare to all of your donations, and how much is being paid by the town and how much is being paid by others?
Okay, so if you just take one of those, Mid-Coast Hunger Prevention, that's at the top line. The request per person served, the $45.11 is what?
Let me double check. So,
It would be there, 6,000 divided
Number of people who used it.
divided by 133.
it's divided
That's
by,
only in the town.
it's divided by total persons served
Yeah,
in the
it's
town.
1,600.
In
In the town, the 133.
Right, in the town.
Which I didn't do my calculator.
Okay. And then the pro rata Harpswell number on the far right column, 499.
That should be divided by,
what?
that should be,
Is that the percentage of their total funding?
Someone explained that to me several years
Yeah.
ago, and I forgot. I never quite got it.
so maybe it's this.
I didn't mean to derail this, Terry, if that takes a while.
But it's an
maybe we should just
interesting,
address it
it's an
next time
interesting
around.
number, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain's not completely there, so.
It's more there than mine, so congratulations.
Terry, has there been any sort of material change in the usage of any of these services by Harpswell residents from last year that you're aware of, were reported to you?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions for Terry?
If you had a blank slate and you didn't have history and tradition and all those other things behind you, would the choices of funding here would the names be the same or changed, or would the amounts be the same or changed? Are we being as impactful with this total budget as you think we can be?
Well, I
And
think,
that's really not a fair
I don't know if
question,
you
because
wanna
all those things count, right?
respond.
Tradition and
Right.
everything else.
I think the entities would certainly always appreciate more, but with the history, just so you know, many municipalities have stopped contributing to social service entities as part of budget cuts. And so this committee and the select board agreed that we would continue the nominal, they call it donations, but the nominal budgets. A couple of entities have significantly increased. You'll see People Plus in 2022 was 2,500, 2023, 5,000, 2024, 10,000. But for the most part, they've pretty much stayed about the same level. And when I send them the applications, I don't say, submit it at your amount. This is your application for next year's request. And they always, unless there's a reason, they always request the prior year's amount. I don't know if that directly answers your question, because,
Not directly, but I don't know that it wasn't at least a little bit rhetorical, which is if you took the entire budget of $35,000, does this suggested set of expenditures represent the most impactful allocation of those monies that we could achieve? Trying to forget about the history, because that,
I think that's such a hard question to answer, because unless you're a person using those services, I mean, they all have value. And anyone who's in a particular situation that might need these kinds of services, it's so important to them. And I think that the fact that Harpswell contributes says something about our community.
I
But-
1,000%
but to
agree
make-
with that.
It's so hard to prioritize them.
But effectively, we have, right?
Well,
Because there are numbers on the
what
page that
happened was,
rank
we
these.
we came to a moment in time where the town said, we've historically contributed to these social service agencies, and we will essentially continue that, but we won't necessarily fund others. Like, we've received requests from entities that don't serve Harpswell residents per se.
Right.
And we've said, well, we have this process, and if you gotta fill out this form, and you've gotta show how many people you serve in Harpswell. And so those entities aren't asking us for money.
Okay.
But we've tried to focus on agencies that serve Harpswell people, and that they have kind of special missions that help people in need.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a wonderful
absolutely
metric
correct.
to use, yeah.
But it's interesting, Christie did mention we had 3 new entities reach out to us this year, which I did send them applications. They did not submit their applications. I say it's the typical past practice not to, but we're not gonna tell them not to submit. And maybe it's time to expand from, there's more than just Harpswell people to worry about. There's Harpswell animals as well, and one of them was an animal entity.
Midcoast Humane, or,
Humane
Nope.
Society.
No, Midcoast Humane, we do contribute to through our animal control officer
right, well, that's required,
budget.
right?
That's,
Yeah.
that's for our contract. But this was a wildlife entity, so I personally have used multiple wildlife entities when I see an injured bird or injured animal. And so it's one that takes animals from places. And so the point I'm making is they were all sent the application, none of them did submit. But who knows, in the future, we will always continue to bring that to you. And Dave, the pro rata Harpswell is you take the percent of Harpswell, 8.31, and it's equals of the $1,600, it's $499.
You weren't confused, you weren't there.
Did you say 1,600 people?
So it's the percent of the total, I'm sorry, the 6,000.
6,000, yeah.
Okay,
It's-
okay, the request.
Yes, of the total request. And so,
Got it. That makes sense, I believe that does.
Okay.
I know, just a second.
Thank you, Terry.
That's
that
all right.
was helpful.
So just a clarificatory question. The 6,000 then, that's the request to Harpswell, is that correct?
no, it says total request municipalities.
For all municipalities?
And that's a line on their application. And so you'll see, for example, Spectrum,
Yeah,
they request of the town $1,825, but they get $132,340. So
yeah.
that is all municipalities. So Midcoast Hunger apparently is just the town of Harpswell.
Okay, thank you. I just was trying to synthesize all these numbers.
Mhm.
Interesting.
I think Brunswick
And
does
Mark.
contribute to People
They
Plus,
did.
but, yeah, but it didn't put it on.
People
here.
Plus, but not Midcoast Hunger?
I don't know. Brunswick does a couple, but I don't know what they are off the top of my head.
My question, Terry, is, there are 2 of these applications that you have not returned. They have a deadline, correct? When you send them the deadline. So if you send it August 1st and you want it back October 1st, do you accept them if they're past the deadline?
There is a deadline, and again, we try to be flexible and work with them, especially when they have a change in staffing. And so it goes to somebody else's email, if somebody else didn't know about it, and so then you reach out to them. And I know you've wanted to really implement a hard deadline. If this committee wants us to directly do that, it hasn't been our practice. Our practice is to help as long as it doesn't
I
hold up
totally-
anything.
I totally understand what you're saying, but they might straighten up if we have a deadline. And to me, a deadline's a deadline.
Well, we haven't had a lot that, where that's, you,
There are currently two and one, there were currently three and
wait a
one
minute,
was,
well, that's not what I understood her to say.
there were two out.
There were three, and one came out right after I made this book. So there's two that I haven't
Okay,
received yet.
I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstood. I thought the three were someone who might, or a group that might not be necessarily helping
That's-
Harpswell residents.
That's three different,
That's another three?
That was another three.
that's another three.
Yeah.
Talk about glass.
Oh, that was the new applicants, yes.
The new applicants, but we had three
Current,
of our currents you had not heard from,
One since the printout of this book has submitted.
which was People Plus.
Yes.
and the other two still haven't met the deadline.
So are we,
You know, I'm going to change that to 1 March because I can see, I didn't take the highlight off of YMCA, but I have numbers on page 2, so clearly they did.
So who was out?
So who is out is Midcoast Maine Community Action.
which I've forgotten what they do.
That's the fuel assistance and all those other programs, and they meet deadlines in every town, every community action, so. Having been a former director of one, they know how to meet the deadlines.
Well, we'll see if we hear anything from them.
I'm in favor of deadlines, though.
You're in favor of deadlines?
Yes.
Absolutely. Why, why should they go after them?
Well, they're not going after them.
No,
They're
but,
not going after them. It's,
No.
I'm not hearing that it's a big time sink for you.
no.
I'm sorry that it's not what?
A big time commitment going after people who haven't responded.
No, I just sent another email, and you know, there's so many reasons. I mean, I understand the deadline thing, but I mean, if that staff member is gone, but they didn't do a forwarding message, or they didn't deactivate that email, and so that email's out there floating, and they don't really know about it there, and so, you know, and for $1,000 for the amount of money that they process, I don't mind doing it. I'm just saying, I don't know. It's a lot, let's just say that you don't see the full applications. We tell the committee, we have them all for your
Yeah.
review. There's a lot of paperwork to submit to the town of Harpswell for $1,000, a lot of paperwork. And
I
so-
totally understand
But
that.
that has not been a reason why they haven't done it. They try very hard to get to that. Sometimes it's making contact with the right person. They don't think when something happens at that time of the year of the $1,000 town, they may think of, you know, a greater funder, but it's not on the top of their list to notify Harpswell.
You know, I like deadlines too, but the bottom line is you're the one who's got to
Gotcha.
administer this whole thing. So I would just personally suggest, to the extent that you need to be more forceful with deadlines, you would certainly have our backing in that regard. But otherwise, use your
Okay,
good
we
judgment,
need-
which you always do.
Thank you.
Okay, but
Agree on that.
you're hearing three people say that. I don't know. I'm just saying, it's not a committee recommendation.
Right. Right.
It's the majority.
We're leaving. We did not vote on it.
No, I
Should we
know.
vote on it?
No, I
I'm
realize
just-
that,
No,
but we-
please,
I
let's
just
not.
want to be clear to the committee. We're leaving it to Terry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Terry, for doing this. Okay. All right. I think we're moving on
Yeah.
to cultural, which is 6,000.
Again, I might as well lead with this. There are two entities highlighted on here that I have not received their applications. You know, as we know, when we have small entities in town or, you know, in any place, but when one person leads the whole entity and then passes, the rest are trying to scramble and figure out where to go from there. So that's the answer for one. And the other had, you know, some serious personal family sicknesses. And so I think those are very valid reasons. And so I wanted to include them into the budget and continue to work with them on receiving their paperwork.
And the Harpswell Neck is one of them. HENP, Harpswell Neck Physical Education, you've not heard from.
Correct, and I have followed up with her, and I will follow up again, now that a little time has gone by. But I did decrease it just to operations. And I don't mean to take this out of order. Did you want to start with the first one?
Keep going on that.
Okay. They reached out to us to find out how to get their funding for the tennis courts. And as this committee knows, we've been holding each year's appropriation in a reserve account until they had all their funding raised. And so they just kind of reached out to ask how to do it. And if you go by, you'll see that they've got the old tennis courts completely dug up. It's all dirt and rocks. And I think that's all they were going to do this fall. And then in the springtime, the company will come and lay the new tennis courts. So since they reached out with that, I felt comfortable reducing it down to just their operational request, their traditional operation request of $3,000.
Right, and we did hear that they had reached their goal, so.
They reached out asking, how do we get the funding
Right,
now that
so-
we've reached
so
our
they-
goal?
Right, so it would be merely maintenance costs.
Did you put in a new sheet for Cundy's?
I did not put in a new sheet, but Dave, you weren't here at the last meeting, but the other committee members, I had informed them, but perhaps not clearly because we didn't discuss this category. Orr's Island Library is $30,000, but Cundy's Harbor Library is actually requesting $35,000, not the 30 that is in that spreadsheet.
Got it.
And
And
they are attending your meeting in 1 week.
in 1 week, along with Cranberry Cornhill,
Correct.
okay. Because we wanted to understand what the new request was.
Yes.
So if I remember correctly, reading through the different libraries that I'm generally not all that familiar with, the Orr's Island Library seems like a substantial, more financially substantial, sustaining number of revenue sources, from fundraising events to donors, et cetera. The Cundy's Harbor Library seemed to be quite different than that, relying substantially on town money. Am I,
And donations.
in donations? Okay.
The Orr's Island one has been in existence for
Long
quite
time.
a long time.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions on any of these?
And the Curtis that's a contractual sort of
Yeah.
obligation that was agreed to for,
Next year's the last year of the
Last-
current MOU.
Is it correct that, and I know we talked about this last week, when the current MOU was signed, they had kept the request the same and was the current MOU for 3 years, so it's basically been 6 years the same? No,
3
No.
years.
3, we don't renew it every 3 years, do we? Or every year?
Yeah.
No, every 3.
Every 3.
Yes.
So for 3 years.
Yeah, that's right. They
Okay.
kept it the same as the last 3 years for
So it's
3
now,
years.
it's been 6 years.
Will have been
She's
6
shaking her
years,
head,
correct.
and she's,
Or if I
The
remember right.
figure change.
It'll be 4, and they held the 2022 price
Right,
for 23,
okay.
24, and
Yes,
25.
that was it.
It'll
Okay.
be 4 years.
Right.
Okay.
because if I remember right, prior to that 4th year,
It was a COLA.
there was an escalator
Yeah.
each year.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes. Okay. Why did we not keep that straight? Thank you.
Thanks to Ms. Jane. on this one.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Ms. Jane. Anything else on this page?
Good.
Good job.
I hear that we're good.
yeah, very good.
Okay, so other matters.
So what I wanted to ask the committee, I actually thought this might, you were much faster through all those entities.
That we have been in the past.
Well, I thought you were going to review each one, but you obviously reviewed them separately and then came in with questions. So that's why I didn't put any consensus on this week, because I thought that would go up until 5. What I intended to ask under other matters is if you wanted to start next week's meeting at 2 PM for the first hour on consensus.
So a 3-hour meeting?
It worked last year.
Wow.
I heard 2:30.
Oh, 2:30, you want to do 2:30?
Well, that's what I heard proposed last.
I
I
think
want
you could
to
do,
do
it's two consensuses for the two
Mhm.
meetings.
I'd do 2 to keep it further away
Yeah, I
from
think we
dinner.
could do that.
I can
Getting
do that.
hungry? Yeah, me too.
2 o'clock, but we might be done by 4:30. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, do it that
I
way.
personally like two. Do you have a problem with
We have
two?
confidence in our chairperson to move
I'm
things
okay with
along
two.
You're okay with two?
efficiently.
Okay, 2 o'clock. Sounds like I'm being outvoted. Should we vote on that? No.
No,
Let me make a motion.
thank you.
No.
So next Monday at 2?
2 o'clock. Can we have a little break in there somewhere?
Sure. Of course.
Is, and
It's
is
your
that,
turn to make cookies.
no, you don't want my
Do the
cookies.
the trail.
Actually, my oven's not working. So, all right, so 2 o'clock next week. That's not gonna be a permanent change. We'll see how it's
Would be
going.
wonderful.
We'll reassess each week, okay. And we will start with consensus next week. Did you have any other matters besides the minutes?
Oh, no.
And I appreciate, again, having, I believe it was Terry, do our minutes. Is everybody a chance to read them?
I'd make a motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor? Okay, minutes are accepted. And we also received a schedule for the remainder of the meetings.
Yes, thank you very much.
Any questions on this going forward? Nope.
No,
Carrie or Christie, did you have anything else for us?
Oh, all set.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Motion for adjournment?
No, you do not need a motion. for
Okay, sure.
adjournment. A wise
Terrific.
person several years ago said, just do it.
All right. I don't think you're going to get any arguments.
Oh,
Who was that?
Telling me I didn't need to do.
Huh.
She was a Robert's Rules kind of person.
Right.
She really don't get some experience.
I think if it's at the normal time, it's okay. We had one school board meeting where we adjourned after 10 minutes.
Oh, that's,
oh, gosh, I never went to that
Ah.
one, trust me. They were always 10 hours to me.
was that good or bad?
It was bad.
Everything gets more expensive, right? In leaps and bounds, some things. It's a little scary, right?
Does anyone else here have a vote?
Yes.
Yes, I have a boat.
I don't either. I would guess that it's related to the business use of the boat.
Do you insure your sailboat?
Huh?
Did you insure your sailboat?
We insure ourselves, yeah,
I need to talk
but
to
it's not nearly that much.
It's not?
I think we pay $600 a year. Okay.
Somehow our boats are included on our homeowner's policy.
Oh, really?
You got the right insurance company.
Well, that's kind of nice.
Your homeowners went up or down?
No, the boats are included on homeowners.
Huh.
I don't have to report them specifically either. I just say we have boats. and
Well,
it's-
Yeah.
we're kind of like have all our insurance in one
Yeah,
entity.
comprehensive, so you have comprehensive.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah, that makes sense.
Chris takes care of it.
So is yours covered under your homeowners, or you have a separate policy? I know Macken's